let's get started. So let's first look at the project's life cycle. So we have got a couple different areas that a project kind of transitions through over the course of its life. There is an initiation of a project that happens. So we play a lot of the work we do a lot of work to get the project started, to get the project formally authorized at the organization. So initiating a project is done. And then the project manager does the planning for a project, creates those project plans. And then those plans are implemented in the executing process group or during the executing part of the project work. And at the same time, simultaneously, project managers are doing a bunch of different processes and activities in the monitoring and controlling part of the project work, while everything else is being done as well. So, there's stuff going on in the executing process group or in the executing part of the project. Maybe we have change requests because of which we're going back and forth between the planning, the project plan, making the modifications, coming back with those new plans and implementing those in the executing part. And at the same time, we are also doing, as project managers, we're also doing a lot of activities in the monitoring and controlling area in order to keep an eye on the rest of the project work. Finally, at the very end of the project, after everything's been completed and we have, the sign-offs from the deliverable, perhaps in a successful project, we do the closing of a project, which is a formal closing of a project. So there is a process to this one. All right. So it's not just, doing one or two activities and calling it as a closing, but there is a process to how we do the work in the closing area of our projects. Now, first, let's just learn a little bit more about, what goes on in all the other phases of a project, such as maybe starting of a project. So in the beginning, when the organization decides on doing a project, there is a lot of, business case development that happens, which kind of lays down the foundation for creating a project charter. All right, so that authorizes a project. So the sponsor, who is also considered to be a supportive stakeholder from the organization, and sponsors are usually somebody senior within the organization. They have a good level of authority at the organization. Now these people create that project charter, which actually formally authorizes the project, shows that the organization is going to be committed to doing this project, is going to provide the resources and funds to doing this project. Now, sponsors at the same time, when they create this charter, they authorize a project manager to the project. The charter talks about, the responsibilities, the authority level of the project manager, those kind of things. So the project manager is assigned to a project through the project charter. So teams are not formed yet, so this is really early on in the project, but the core planning team could be identified even at this point, the team that's going to help the project manager do all of these activities, create some of these plans. All right, so the sponsor creates the charter, and that again brings the project into life. And projects get a visibility at the organization and a commitment to the project. So through the charter, what the organization is doing is basically making an announcement that, hey, we're doing this project, we're committed to this project, and so now you as all the employees as part of the organization, we expect your support and commitment to the same project. And projects, please remember, they always have a purpose in the organization, all right? So it's not just a task, all right, not something on a to-do list for the organization. Projects have a role, they fit in the organization's strategic plans, they're part of the strategic plans. Projects always help organizations get closer to their strategic goals. So once a project manager has been authorized, a project has been authorized, then the project manager starts the planning effort for the project. So this is where the project manager is creating a project plan. Now, project managers do lead this part of the activity. It is a very time-consuming task that we see in projects, but it is also very important that project managers do give it the time and attention it deserves and complete these activities in a proper manner to create a full, thorough, and very detailed and accurate project plans. Now, project managers are not the ones doing this by themselves. There is a core planning team. So there are some, very important team members that kind of start with the project manager from day one, and they kind of stay with the project manager till the last day of the project. So that team is actually helping the project manager get done. We need our subject matter experts, the SMEs, to help us create those thorough plans. So that can include your business analyst, who is going to be collecting requirements, defining the requirements documentations. It can also be the change managers who join pretty early on, even though their work actually starts much later in the project, but they join early on at this stage to just, to observe and see, what that environment is like at the organization. What is the stakeholder end user community like? What is their experience and skill level like? And then they will create all the necessary plans to get this team or these end users, the customer, ready to, accept the product and to really, be able to use the product. Scheduling specialists, technical subject matter experts, of course. So all of these people become part of that team, and they also help the project manager here. The very important work breakdown structure, which is a hierarchy chart, is created here. Work breakdown structure is 100% scope. All right, so it is basically your project and product scope broken down or decomposed into tiny components for the team to be able to understand, what it means and how to do this project. So the goal here is to involve your team members while creating the work breakdown structure, and as many of your team members as you possibly can get involved in this process, the better it is for the project. All right, so once we have our plans ready, then we basically, start doing the work. So once we have our project plan ready, now it is time for us to implement that plan and get the work done. So before we start off the work, we always have a meeting called a kickoff meeting. This is a very important, very useful meeting, and project managers should not skip on this one. What you do in these meetings is basically invite your entire stakeholder community. All of your team members are in there, and you all have a discussion together about the project, about the goals of the project. You're going to have a discussion about how, the stakeholders' commitment and engagement is so important to the success of the project. You as a project manager, you're going to talk about some of the ground rules here with your team members and as well as with the stakeholders. Now, stakeholders are pretty important folks. They determine the success of our projects. They determine whether our product is a success or not. But that doesn't mean they don't deserve ground rules. They also need ground rules because they are now a part of the project work. They sometimes lead certain activities for us in our project. They're assigned owners of risks in our project. So stakeholders are very actively engaged in the project work, and so they need to have some ground rules of behavior on this project. So this is a very good time to have that discussion with your stakeholder community. Executing process group, or the executing part of a project, is a very busy time, and it has as a project manager, you see a lot of moving parts in the project, and you have to now manage and kind of juggle between them. So this is a really busy time for the project manager as well as for the team members. But it is very important that project managers manage this part of the project carefully and thoroughly, because it ultimately determines, what kind of product you have at the end of it all and how successful this project is.